Call the meeting to order. Here's the agenda. Any corrections or conditions?
Nope. Yeah, I'll make that motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Approve the minutes, January 29th.
And that's what correct me, motion to approve.
I'll second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. General public concerns. Anybody got any complaints? Wants to address the people?
Is this the time to talk about the drainage for those?
No.
That's a nine.
That's it.
Here.
Hey, Ross.
Okay. Bruce. Ben. Got Ben coming up. Yeah. Okay.
So what I've just handed you is a side-by-side comparison from two engineering firms to do the preliminary and final design for Murray Bridge. Looking at the numbers, side-by-side comparison, Shuck Britson is the cheaper of the two. They're both very good engineering firms. I wouldn't have a problem with either one of them. Assuming Shuck Britson's construction staking will be similar to Bolton and Mink. They're still about 80,000 cheaper.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
Yeah, so talking to Shuck Britson, they said that that would be an additional contract that they would add on after they got done with the final design. But assuming their number is something similar to Bolton and Mink, like I said, they're still significantly cheaper. And I think that's probably just because of their familiarity with the job versus Bolton and Mink.
Yeah, they got a lot of the legwork done already.
Right, they've been out there, they've done some preliminary cross sections of the river. They've got a pretty good idea of what we're looking at for structure moving forward. Because they did the feasibility study for us to try and acquire.
They're familiar.
permits. Yes,
The overall overview of the whole project.
yes, yeah. With the price tag that we're applying for, with federal grants being somewhere around $5.5 to $6 million for that bridge. And us applying for like 3.6 or 3.7 million in this raise grant. Start looking at cost of design versus cost of the project, we're right around 5.5 to 6%, which is in the ballpark, if not just a little bit low.
Now,
From what-
7 or better.
Usually it's 7 to 10 for engineering services. But looking at the numbers, talking to both engineering firms that supplied the quotes, it would be my recommendation to move forward with Shuck Britson as the engineering firm for the Murray Bridge project.
Well, with that, in a previous discussion, I'd make a motion that we do move forward with Chuck Britson for the design of the Murray Bridge project.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion?
I have so you're comfortable doing him with an open slot for the staking?
Yes,
I mean, I don't think we're gonna have to worry about it, but I just want to make sure that you're comfortable with that.
I'm fine with that. I mean, If,
This isn't a contract anyway, it's more of a quote, or is it a contract?
so there's
price?
a supplemental agreement for, these prices. I mean, they're both contracts,
Okay,
but I'm comfortable with continuing forward without the construction staking. If push came to shove, everything that they do as far as design is officially owned by us
mhm,
without obligating ourselves to it. If it had to be done by county services, I think we could probably fumble our way through it.
mhm.
I'm good with it then. I just wanted to ask.
Nope, I agree.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
The other two items that I had on there were transfers from rural basic and local option sales tax.
Would you? Need a copy.
I don't remember what the totals were. The local option sales tax was 300,000. And the
80.
rural basic was $811,355.50, or half of our yearly rural transfer.
Well, that one's first. You want to do them separate? I'm assuming.
Sure.
We'll do the resolution 2023. That be
2024.
Yes.
2024.
01 for transfer of 811,335 or 355. Jesus. 0.50. My glasses might need cleaning.
I'll second Bruce's motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, carried.
Trish, I'm still writing on my checks too, so.
Well, it is correct on the resolution, so.
Yeah.
Well, I'd make a motion then on the local option sales tax loss fund of $300,000 transfer to secondary. Fund.
Second,
I'll second.
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Opposed, carried.
This is about the normal time frame of doing this.
Yeah, so usually we do rural and general basic in sometime in January, and then the second transfer is the beginning of June. And then local option sales tax is just at any point during the year. And so with the local option sales tax, we typically use that to do a construction project. This year, we use that funding to do the bridge to box culvert up by Kevin Talers on Kentucky. So that project was roughly, I want to say like 320,000. So we did a $300,000 transfer to cover the cost of that one.
Okay, good, good.
is that Murray Bridge? Somebody asked me, is that in, will that be left there if that other one?
Oh, the old bridge?
The old one, I don't believe so.
Well, they wondered about snowmobiling and side by sides, and I said I didn't have a clue what.
Our intention would be to vacate the roadway on the east side where it's sloughing off and failing off.
Up our road every year.
The west side, we would vacate as much of the road as we could without landlocking anyone. I believe the person that owns the timber is separate from the people that own the farm. So, do you know anybody that wants to buy one?
Look at the
You can buy a drink.
Yes.
Well, I wasn't sure if it was like Berkmer, isn't that
So Berkmer is listed as a nationally historic
Yeah.
bridge. Murray, I just got word, is potentially historic.
Well, before we rip it out, let's potentially make sure they want to decide which side of the list it's on.
Well, yeah, I mean, you do some checking. I mean, you can still remove. I mean, we could still remove Berkmer. It's just you have to explore additional options. Would it be feasible to stick money into repairing? Can it be relocated? There's,
It'd almost be cheaper to relocate it than repair it for another 100 years.
right. Yeah,
You know, there's the Berkmer, we're just constantly throwing money in that.
Yeah,
but those are the options that we'd be looking at before eventual, you know, if we remove, it would be, we look at all of those options first,
Perfect.
so.
I told him I would ask.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
thank you.
Next time. Well, we got some time, so let's jump down to place on file the Avery finishing 61818 and DNS Fog finishing 61515.
These are just like what we've been doing on anything else that's come in here, right?
Yeah, I just,
So-
so this information.
Motion to accept the Avery finisher 61818. DNS finisher 61515 and GLF Farms at 60771. And might as well do Martin Peterson's at 57922 and Mike Ludwig at 58157.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on any of them? On that one. No.
One just added a few
Yeah, added
acres.
more round to it. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Money reports.
Well, going back to last week, I did not have any official extra meetings. Nothing official.
I don't call the dog shelter an official meeting, but their fundraiser was held Sunday afternoon. It was a great success, a lot of people there. The community was very generous in their donations, the businesses that we contacted. From cash donations to products put on the silent auction, and things went real well on the silent auction, and they had a lot of good food there, and it all disappeared, and
Run out of food.
had a much bigger crowd than last year even.
Wow,
So place was packed.
good
So
deal.
it was a very successful event. So that's the only thing I had this week.
Had none.
Yeah, my first week is always slow. I had none.
Yeah, the only thing I had was the animal fundraiser yesterday, and my legs are telling me that it's on them too long last night. Not used to standing all day from 7:30 until after 6 last night. But they did have a good deal. They had a very big crowd. We ran out of food, and a lot of the dogs that had been adopted over the last couple of years were there.
Oh.
People brought them in, and kind of interesting to see how they changed and what they done, but it was very successful. Do you have anything? No.
Well, beans, we have both the other two are scheduled. I don't think Andy's here, is he?
I didn't
No, I
see him.
haven't seen.
The other one, we have to wait for the engineer.
Well, it's a hearing, so we gotta wait. till
Yeah.
nine.
So.
Take a short recess.
Well, I guess we have something we can talk, we got this letter from RWE.
Yeah.
Which is a windmill company who is working the county over. Different land, they're trying to acquire easements for a wind farm. We really have no idea where. This is the only contact we've had from them so far. But it's very similar to a letter I got from a landowner, all it is different names on it, exact same letter. Different land agent. And it appears this land agent company acquires the land and the leases. And then they're doing it for this RWE Clean Energy. Yeah. Anybody else know anything else other than this?
I haven't.
That's about,
I've gotten one call from somebody in
there's,
the area.
but then
not
I
happy
think
about
there's,
it.
I don't know, it's hard to keep track of these companies. There's this one, that one, and the other one, I've had contact from other people, pretty much the same story, they're just out snuffling around. People that have contacted me are not happy with them.
Right,
They're not a bit happy with them. I mean, I think given the fact that we do have a countywide moratorium on any of this, it's probably put this on file, and if we need to, nice to have the guy's contact information if we need to contact him, but otherwise I wouldn't entertain this at this point in time. My feeling.
I would agree.
And I do think some of the reason is, been 5 years or better. Actually, it says 17, but, some of the leases that they had previously signed have expired. And are renewing.
So they're trying to get them going again.
Yeah.
'Cause I knew it was before I got on the board.
And some of this is from in different areas from 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Cases. It seems like they started over west and that worked their way east.
Yeah,
And all along, every place that hits, people call, like these guys.
Yep.
What can you do in the county? I'd say, well, we've done what we need to do at this point. I file this and
yeah,
take it under advisement if needed.
yeah.
Calls I've got all from over east, and they're hitting them pretty hard over their landowners.
Were they real thrilled about that? That's,
Yeah.
they're just,
I just got the one, he's from the west side. He was
Kind of pushy.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're very, the landowners are getting very upset, actually.
Yeah, I think one of them told me this was the third company that's been on their farm. Wanting to find out.
They don't appear to want to take no for an answer.
No, that's what the gentleman that called me and talked to me about, he was very upset that they're not leaving him alone.
They just, no, and then
Yeah.
somebody else will come back.
Yeah,
They're very discouraged, so I don't
Yeah.
think we need to give these folks.
I did tell me the moratorium, so there's nothing
No,
that they can do anyway.
no,
so,
and I told landowners, just tell them politely,
Yeah,
move along.
yeah.
That's it.
I told mine, if they keep bugging and call the sheriff if they won't leave. I did, I told them, I said,
If they're
I
that
said, if
pesky.
they're, cause this one guy wouldn't leave and I just told him, I said, just tell them, to call the sheriff.
Kind of like the old vacuum salesman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yep, but that's what I told him. I said, just call the sheriff the next time if they won't go.
We have a 10-minute recess.
Yep.
Yep.
Reminder at ISAC this Thursday.
Yep.
Des Moines.
Makes a difference to anyone. I did print out the agenda for that meeting.
I've got to go down the day before. I've got a meeting with the invitation committee so we can plan for the March meeting. We're always planning one ahead.
Well, you have to. You
Yeah,
have to.
well, we've got most of it planned, but it's just finalizing. I told them how good the one in January was. I said, we actually did, we did pretty good with that one.
Yeah.
Take a minute recess.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody in the audience got any questions?
We're safe, like, definitely isn't gonna be for your insurance.
Not for 10 minutes, huh?
Dude,
And on the budget stuff, I We all right?
Down there, though.
Utilizing our,
Is he?
Mhm.
this
This is out in
fiscal
Humboldt.
year's number. I'm gonna keep it, it's gonna be, and I've already stated that.
You can see his schedule there for Thursday.
That's what we're working with. They'll not expect that to raise if we can. That's one of those budget things that, you know, whatever you budget, if you don't use.
What's that?
There is I forgot there is an exhibition set up.
We'll start over, right? So-
Yeah.
So
I
having
forgot
said
about
that,
that.
we're gonna talk where we need to, you know, we don't wanna short ourselves, but if we can save money, we will. And not money that is.
Yeah.
But I don't wanna make a budget amendment.
Right.
Say, because we put out the yes, we won't really have the.
Oh my God, the governor's gonna be there.
Yeah, well, that's.
Be his stuff.
But it, we can't get
Oh.
But in the
That's
next.
what she said, because she's been scheduled
Balance
for
this
some
fiscal
meeting that I
year.
was at, yeah.
Never shows up.
My intention is.
Something always comes up.
How do you get?
I mean,
More important.
Yeah.
it-
If it
there's
has
a weak control in
Good
fiscal
job.
So I really can't
Oh, God.
tell you till
I just.
Tell you
this summer.
Pardon me on the AEA stuff.
Right.
That is so
Because we're gonna use.
Well, it's ridiculous. but She's also exposed to the top side where there's like 8 people that complain.
It's hard, it's very.
Over 3,000.
It's just like, it's just.
I just, I mean, I don't want, I guess I was, I don't wanna make.
Don't just.
Change.
Got the whole,
$10,000.
Right.
if you got the whole thing, you're just gonna get a whole bunch of people.
Me too.
If that's okay.
Absolutely.
But it won't go.
I gotta get a.
She will, could not. Just the way it works. It's very, it's mildly.
So then you get the information beyond
If it was a calendar year.
It'd be a lot easier. when-
Because you do everything in that year, but the fiscal year is right in the middle of the week. Because you do stuff in the spring, summer, and sometimes.
Well, yeah. And in the spring, you're like, hey, by the way, it looks really bad. We should probably do this.
Well, yeah, we have a pretty good idea.
I don't know.
Overall, it's save a little money along the way. But they can't save so much.
We're in recess, Colin.
Do something. It's gonna cost you.
We're just waiting for the 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Wewe're killing time.
You can come in and get settled in.
Caught up now.
So you got pictures of the baby?
Yes.
Oh.
Maybe a little less here, do something, but not.
He's seen and waiting.
It's comfortable.
Oh, this is now.
He's
So
5
that
feet.
number is.
Oh, wow.
Man, he should be sleeping through the night.
Well, he's.
Well, that'll happen in 4 or 5 years.
Oh.
And I already.
So how big is
This,
it now?
this year,
He's,
for next year.
I think last time we weighed him, he was 14 pounds. But that's been
Should have went down
almost.
Yeah, that's a good, I was gonna say, for 5 weeks, he looks like a good sized
These
boy.
are
Yeah.
together,
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
They're.
There's
What's
the,
the name?
Edward.
Edward, okay. Is it a family name?
Well, there is some
They don't buy it.
Edwards on both sides of our family, but I didn't know about them before
Oh,
we named
that's
it.
funny. Because I think the older names are coming back. I have a
Yeah.
grandson named Emmett.
Okay.
And then another one, Arthur,
This
but
one,
Arthur
yeah.
is a family.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're using.
She named
some of
it
this
Arthur
year's
Theodore after
things,
both of her
so
great
guess how
uncles.
much you need for next year.
Oh,
The intention is-
yeah, it's Edward Joseph. and My dad's name is
So
Joseph.
by the time.
Oh,
at
awesome.
least we-
He
budget
is a
Next
dog.
year's.
Yeah.
Right, actually, used to
That first,
I didn't
no,
wanna
it's a
do
learning curve. This is-
budget.
Well, he's our second,
Oh,
actually.
I think it's your first.
No, we've got a 20-month-old too. son.
It's kind of what.
Isaac.
Okay, for some
That's
reason I thought this was number one.
No,
well, my daughter works in Fort Dodge at the hospital with a stroke patient.
yeah.
She's leaving for Arizona
And sometimes if you
for a
were.
conference down there.
Here, have a seat.
And she took Lena to emergency care yesterday because she's got ear infection. So Jim says, why wouldn't we have one that's sick and one that's lame on? And Melissa said this morning, screamed. 9 o'clock, so. about midnight, it's just an hour. Unfortunately, when you have your, they just.
No, I do not.
Oh, I got enough. You got several.
And I did it, but.
Thanks, Terry.
I mean, they tried all over. But she hasn't had it.
Right. And then it don't run long enough, and then they end up turning right around and getting back course.
And then what happened at the end, it's like, oh my God, when I reached mine.
Yeah.
Like probably 6,000 acres.
Isn't that crazy?
So Bruce, when will you be leaving for Las Vegas this week?
I'm not. You come in, Doug, there's room.
I don't know.
I had to teach you about that. I heard what they said, the tickets cost, like, good lord.
Somebody said $9,000 is a cheap ticket.
That is, I can't even get my mind around that.
You must really wanna go, if you wanna
I don't
shop
know.
$9,000.
I asked you how many people fit in that
Yeah.
place, but.
Well, between 65 and 75% of the entire
I don't know.
attendance is made up of all of the other teams. Cause they all get a certain amount of allotment. Every player gets 2 tickets if they won, which most of them scalp them anyway.
Yeah.
But each player in the NFL gets 2 tickets.
Board that wants one. The board probably wants a copy.
Yeah, if they don't get their own, if they can't get that out, if they don't.
Yeah, me too.
Any of us players do it. A couple years ago when the Bengals were in it, they gave us the last minute email. We have extra tickets in here and are going to go on. Well, just put Duke down the street and look out.
I just, sorry.
That's fine.
I'm grabbing. Gary, grab a thing.
I do have several copies of preliminary plans too. These, if anybody specifically wants, I don't have enough for everybody here. Does anybody want?
That's what I thought it was one of the other.
Anybody else?
Bruce and I have a fair one.
Yeah.
Might be grabby, but I do share.
And then lastly, we did a pre-classification. And basically, if you haven't seen that, it kind of shows an estimated breakdown of dollars. And who wants a copy of that? I got 10 copies of that too.
I'll take a count.
No. Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
Their attention.
Anybody wants some?
Would you guys talk up louder? I have a computer good at home.
Well,
Well.
Talking about it.
Anybody else?
I got 9.
Yep, I got 9.
Yes, indeed.
You need to make a motion to go into drainage.
Yes.
I'll make that motion to go into drainage.
Second.
Any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All carried. We are in drainage.
Well,
Everybody is here for Dakota City EV80 grant improvement.
So this is the preliminary hearing for the DD80 branch D improvement that you guys all got the letter for, which Colin from Jacob Westergaard is here to go over that with us and answer any questions you guys may have.
Well, morning, everybody. Appreciate you all coming. Yeah, like Terry said, my name's Colin Klingbeil. I'm an engineer with Jacobson Westergaard out of Esterville. And kind of just to sort of introduce this. We're gonna be it'll be pretty informal, so if there's questions at any point, I mean, feel free to ask them, but I'll just kind of start by who got letters. So basically, everybody who's in branch D of drainage district number 80 in Humboldt County got a letter. And I will make it clear, and if you didn't get, let's see, maybe I have a map in here. Hope I do. Yeah. So in the engineer's report on the very last page, but not on the back, so there's a map, if you want to flip to that. The area that is outlined, there's like a pink line with some dotted black in it. It's kind of a box shape. That is the area that's really involved in this project. So there actually are people, and probably some of you all here, actually own land or parcels or lots that are outside this area. And so I just want to make clear that when we do a drainage district project, a petition is made, we file a report. The people who are involved, at least to start, it has to be somebody who's on an existing assessment schedule. So what we're sort of talking about here is not the entirety of branch D, which is a lateral of this tile system. It's just the very upper end. And so there's more people to the north here of this area shown on this map that are included right now in branch D. But when we do an improvement project, basically in the end, the people who end up paying are only the people that benefit from it. So in other words, if your water drains into what would the portion that would be improved, then you'd be involved. Otherwise you wouldn't be. So there may be people that actually I know there are people that got letters that really aren't affected by this project, I guess. But how this works as far as deciding on whether or not to proceed is you send a notice out to everybody who's involved in an assessment schedule that's on file at the auditor's office. So I hope that makes sense, but I just did want to clarify that because there's maybe some people here who own lands outside this area. And generally, I'm going to get to the point where we kind of go through this engineer's report. Just maybe some housekeeping things on how this works. So if you own land in a drainage district, you have the right to use the facilities of that drainage district. So this is DD80. There's several different tile systems that drain stormwater from Dakota City. A large project was done in 2009 that was a major improvement, actually, even to this branch that we're talking about, branch D. It just didn't go all the way to the very end. So there's a 100-year-old tile, 100+ year old tile, that was improved. But this very upper reach was not. And so if you're in a drainage district, you have the right to use those. You also can petition for improvements. So that's what happened here. A petition was filed for improvements, and that kind of started this process. And so once the board, who are trustees for the drainage district, gets the petition, then they hire an engineer, which was me, to basically do an investigation and a report, which I've done. And then we have a hearing like this to decide where we go from here. Today, since this is the formal hearing, there's really 3 different things that could happen. One is the project could be approved to move forward, and that doesn't mean for sure that it'll happen, but the next step would be that we would put together plans and specifications and basically put it out for bid. And then there'd be another step, like when we got the bids in, like if prices were way out of line, the board still has discretion to stop the project. But anyways, that's one. It could be approved to move to that next step. Another thing that could happen is if there's something else that needs to be looked at, or there's remaining concerns, or whatever the reason may be, the hearing could be continued to a later date if we need to come back again to have further discussion or look at something. And then the third thing is if there was enough objections. So when you do an improvement, there's 2 different ways for something to be approved or to move forward. First, you look at the landowners who have a say. You can put in written objections to the project. And if there's enough objections from the landowners, then essentially it's called remonstrance. And if remonstrance is met, the project is automatically off the table. The board doesn't even vote on it. Essentially, if it's a high enough amount of landowners say we don't want it, then the board doesn't even vote. It's just over with. And then the other thing is, if that isn't met, the board still has the vote can vote it up or down. So those are kind of the 3 things that could be outcomes of this meeting today.
What is the remonstrance level?
Yeah, so basically it's a 2-tiered count. So it has to be more than 50% of the landowners by population. So each individual landowner in the assessment schedule has a vote. So it has to be more than 50% by population, who also own at least 70% of the lands in the area. So that's both of those have to be met for remonstrance to be met. And kind of going back to what I was talking about at first, we actually the only way that we can really do the remonstrance check is with an existing assessment schedule. So it's all in branch D. So it's actually more people than what would be included in this. So anyways, that's the kind of the 3 different outcomes of today's meeting. So I guess with that being, are there any questions on anything I've said up to this point before we get into the actual report? Yes, ma'am.
That thing about rejecting and that 70%, is that just the landowners that are being affected or everybody?
It's the landowners. It's not just the landowners that are being affected.
Well, that's not fair. Then they wouldn't have to pay.
Well, yeah, I get what you're saying, but one of the challenges with doing it a different way is that in drainage districts, you have these assessment schedules that are set up for how to pay the bills. And so like this one was reclassified when that major improvement project was done back in around 2009. And branch D has its own assessment schedule. And what that's meant for is okay, we did this big improvement. Now, if there's any maintenance, repairs, things that are done just on this branch, only the people that use that should pay for that. And that made sense at the time. But now, if we're looking at something new, then we don't really have anything official to go off of. I did do a pre-classification report, which shows estimated dollars for the people that would be paying, and it's not final numbers, but that at least shows people what they may or may not be paying. I get what you're saying, though. There's people
Yeah.
outside the truly
They
affected
don't
area.
care, so they'll vote, yeah.
But that, I think, where it's not just the landowners that have a say in it, the board acts as trustees for the drainage district. And so. Yes, maybe remonstrance doesn't get met because they don't care, some people, so you can't, it'd be harder to meet those thresholds. But if, just as an example, how I could see something going is if in the area that we're talking about, that the overwhelming majority are against it, even though legally by Iowa code remonstrance isn't met, the board still ends up voting, and the board is representing their trustees for the district, and so they might say to themselves, well, the people who are actually affected here don't want this, and so we're gonna respect that and vote against it. That's just a scenario. So that's why it's important. There's two phases. It can be remonstrance, but if that's not met, the board still has discretion. So then it would be the board's decision on how to proceed.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
Being the city probably owns the biggest share of the streets if they decided to go and petition against it, they would be a big part of the 50% of landowners one day.
Not the 50%. They're one landowner,
Yeah,
but the 70%
no.
of land area, yes.
They would be the biggest percentage of that.
Of land.
Of land.
Yeah,
Everybody in Dakota City would be paying with the city.
yeah, right. So yeah, the city is a landowner in the district, but where does the city get its money to pay drainage assessments? It's from everybody. So indirectly, yes, there's a trickle down to the residents of Dakota City.
What's the
But
full cost?
mostly to the ones that are listed on the petition though,
Yes.
because we'll get dinged for this, and then we're going to get dinged from the city.
Well, the city would be spread over the whole city.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's still part of
Get
us.
a
That's part of it, yes.
I figured, I did the math. There's 400 households in Dakota City. It'd be about $400 a household, every household, plus the ones that are in it.
To pay for the entire project or to pay for the city's share
Well, for the city share,
from the pre-classification report? Is that,
yeah.
okay?
See, that I did the math. Well,
How much is the full cost?
Well, why don't we go through the
Get to that.
engineers before? Yeah, I was more asking if there's questions on the kind of procedural stuff that I had talked to up to this point. We'll come back, we'll get all that stuff. Yeah, so let's just go ahead and quickly kind of go through my report.
Now we're moving back up on the front page.
Yeah,
It's
to the-
that map, one that we were looking at, right?
Yep. Yeah, so,
Get that out.
and sorry, maybe we should look at that map one more time. Just to give you from the start, a lay of the land, so. The blue lines that have dots, that's existing district tile, and the thick black line and the thick red line, those are proposed tile, and so there are tile there currently, but it's 12 and 10-inch tile that was installed in approximately 1918. What I'm recommending is 30-inch and 24-inch tiles, so putting it basically in the exact same spot. So you don't see the blue dotted line there, but you see it on 4th Street North. Following the road north, starting north of First Avenue North, and then running south, basically almost all the way through Main Street. And it runs through, really I guess that used to be a street, but now it's obviously it's an alley, or it's the school playground and ball field are on it. It's really the schools, but it's still shown as the right of way, still shown as city street. So that's just kind of gets you the lay of the land. North of where we proposed this tile, that's where I got that note saying branch D tile improved in 2009. That's a 30-inch tile. Up to where the two blue lines intersect with the black line. Okay, now to the front.
One more question before you move.
Yeah.
How does the 3rd Street, on Main Street, how does the water get from like in front of the courthouse side to the thing, or really not connected? From 3rd Street across?
You're talking west of 3rd Street?
Yep, west to the east. Is that connected? On Main Street there? Or
Those blue lines?
those blue lines?
No,
that connect?
that's like a divide. So on one side of that line, the water goes east, on the other side, it goes west.
Oh, gotcha.
Yep. And even like along 3rd Street, we saw the ditch on the west side of 3rd Street south of Main Street there. It runs to the north and then to the west. So we put the line right in the middle of 3rd Street.
So are you saying that D1 and D2, that's those blue dotted lines, they're connected to D, right?
Yeah.
So some of that water goes west down the hill, I take it. That, if it's, then the drainage area.
I'm not sure I understand.
West of 3rd Street, which is
Yeah.
over here. Yes, that goes down to DD 13.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
So not all the water that is deposited, like, at the city hall and stuff, doesn't go north, some of it goes west.
No, it all go north.
But
The stuff within this boundary would go north. These two, you're talking about these two lines that connect to the red line?
yeah.
That goes-
D1 and D2.
That goes east and they connect into branch D and go north.
He would go downhill. Okay, go ahead.
That is the way that the tile system is set up, that it runs to the east and then connects into that tile that goes north.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so the petition that was filed in August of 2023 by the city asked for an improvement of the existing 10-inch and 12-inch diameter branch D tile, approximately 800 feet through the playground and ball fields at the elementary school. So that's kind of how it got started. And then just brief history, the district's been around for over 100 years. Like I said, a major improvement project was completed in 2009, and that it was branch D, it was other stuff, but it kind of rerouted, because before that had gone into drainage district 13A. And it rerouted some of that a different outlets it a different direction, to the river. So, yeah, we took a look at this, we looked at the capacities. And obviously drainage districts are typically agricultural drainage systems, but they also, like in this case, can function as like a city storm sewer. But obviously, if you think about how much drainage is needed, or how are you gonna size a pipe? Maybe the needs of agricultural lands are a little bit different than in a town. And a lot of that just has to do with what you're trying to protect. It's, if crops are underwater for a day, it's not gonna kill them. But if buildings are underwater for a day, you're gonna have a lot of damages. So there's a level of protection, and then also in town, you've got streets and you've got roofs and you've got driveways and things. So when the rain falls, there's a lot more of it running off and needing to go somewhere right away versus in a agricultural field where it can soak in better. So those are things that we have to think about when we're looking at sizing the tile. And so I talked earlier when we looked at that map about a 30-inch and a 24-inch diameter tile. That's upsizing from 10 and 12-inch diameter tile. And it's pretty common when we look at 100 years ago when they designed these systems, whether they were in town or whether they were out in farm ground, that they really had a different idea of how drainage needs back then versus what we know today. So it, unsurprisingly, this upper end, I'd say, is the 10 and 12-inch tile are too small. And in talking with, basically we've heard that the ball field has from time to time flooded, and there's issues down on Main Street, and so there's a need there. And I don't want to bore you with the details, but we look at it's called a drainage coefficient. So essentially how many inches of water per day over the area that you're draining is the pipe size to take. And so the improved pipe up to the spot that we're talking about, that had a drainage coefficient of almost like 23.5 inches per day, which is way above what you would do for agricultural drainage, which is more like a 1/2 inch to 1 inch. And then you see that the 12 in this table on page 2, that's what I'm looking at. The drainage coefficient of the existing 12-inch and 10-inch tile are between 2.5 and 3 3¾ inches per day. So a lot, order of magnitude smaller than what the prior improvement was. And maybe a question that you might have is, well, when they did this improvement in 2009, why didn't they just include this in it? And I don't have a direct answer for that. It is pretty common with improvement projects when there's been a system in place for 100 years and you're doing an improvement, not to replace the whole system. Now looking back, it probably would have been a good thing. But that wasn't done, so kind of here we are.
So back when you did that daycare wasn't there, so then you had that and that made more runoff.
Yeah, I don't know if that would make a world of difference. I mean, there's a lot of factors that can go into that. The other thing, like when I'm looking at drainage coefficient, it assumes that the tile are in perfect condition. Well, they're 100 years old. We didn't do a video inspection to see what the condition was. I know there was a concern about trees in the area. They are fairly, you're kind of on the edge of where I'd like to see them in relation to the existing tile. But if we did this project, we'd be digging up the old and basically crushing, removing the old pipe, and we could see if there was roots in there. And I think at that point, we could make a decision, well, if there's already roots right here and we just dig a trench and put new tile in, all they have to do is grow a couple feet and they'd be back in. So we would end up having to look at possibly removing trees, but we haven't. That's another thing to consider with this too. This assumes that they're all in good condition, which they might not be. The proposal, I kind of talked about that already, for the most part, at least size of tile. We've got a cost estimate. Obviously, this costs more than just running through a farm field when you've got roads and you've got a playground and fences and you've got sidewalks and curbs. That all, and utilities, that all adds cost to the project. So this is not, we're not talking about a long stretch of pipe. It's a little over 628 feet. And then one other thing, on the south side of First Avenue North, so basically that ball field, just north of the ball field, where you would put in a large manhole intake structure, essentially to help drain that area quickly. And that's where we would transition from a 30-inch pipe to a 24-inch pipe. Those are kind of, without getting way into the details of every single thing, that's kind of a general plan. I will mention that as far as utilities go, haven't looked, I mean, I've did a one call, a design locate, basically to try to figure out what sort of utilities are in the area. So we're aware of some of those things, but not as far as depths and if there's potential conflicts. Putting the tile in the same place as the existing one hopefully limits the number of issues that we might have. But I do think it's important to note that the drainage district has a permanent easement for that tile. So that includes the right to make improvements. And if there are utilities that are in the way, which again, we're putting in a bigger pipe, so it's gonna take up more room. If we do the project, of course, there's a possibility that there's a conflict or two with utilities and we'd have to deal with those. But as far as who bears the cost of that, which is an important thing to know, if any utility needed to be relocated, it would be the cost of the utility company. And that's something that's not me just saying that, that's directly out of Iowa code.
And
Yeah.
you sent us all, means you're on the topic of utilities. Can you speak to this? Is there anything other than their acknowledgement of what you sent them on that email that you sent to them?
Are you moving?
Yeah, one call.
That was an email that they sent last week.
Yeah, it was on the second.
Did they say, I don't recall. I don't remember what they said in that.
Yeah,
I think
I didn't know
I
if that
believe
came
I've
from
seen
you
it.
or them, but that would speak to your utility
Yeah.
business.
Yeah. So I had already done a design locate and then I sent out these preliminary plans to the utility company and explained this basically and said, I want us to be coordinating as soon as possible. That there's no guarantee this project is happening at this point, but because this could affect your utilities, I want you to know about it. So I sent them the preliminary plans. This was a response to that. So I think they sort of treated it as another design locate request. I already got maps from them for this, so it's really no new information.
No, but they're aware of it.
Yes. Yes.
Would you know at this point of all utilities that may or may not be affected or aware of the project?
I know the utilities in the area. I don't know the extent of or which ones may be affected.
No, we
because
don't
I
know
don't
that.
know all the
Maybe-
depths.
right.
I've got an idea of roughly where things are located. We didn't have them flag it and go survey it at this point. But we don't know the depths exactly of like, the fiber. They said, well, we're typically at 30 inches or whatever, but if we bored it, it could be deeper.
Right.
That's just example of things that might happen.
Basically, they're aware.
Yes.
So on your estimate, your 30-inch and 24-inch, you're using concrete?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yep.
Is there,
Was this looked at in 2018? If I remember, I think it was in 2018 when the drainage guy around here looked at it, it was like substantially a lot less cost than what it is right now. Why was that asked over 18 then?
Well, I can't answer that. That's something that I saw from the city, as I understood it, got a quote from a contractor, and that was a very incomplete quote. It was for 24-inch dual wall plastic. It didn't include any of this other stuff like with fixing the roads and dealing with the landscaping and redoing the curb and gutter. It was just simply for putting in plastic pipe.
Right.
And I believe that was somewhere around 50,000 for that. I understand when we're talking about, I'm estimating $270,000 total project cost. With everything,
With the tile being good.
with the tile being good.
Like then you were saying the price is based on the tile being good.
Yeah, no tree removal or
Yeah,
no problems.
No tree removal. I don't know about what you mean by the tile being, we're gonna remove, if we do this, we're gonna take out the old tile.
Yeah, but you said something about that when you go to remove it, if you have problems and you need to do other things,
Sure.
that could. I mean,
The
that's what
most that I could see that being would be removing a few trees. If there was tree roots in there, that's really the only thing that I can think of that would be an additional issue with that. Like if there's tree roots that are in the tile, if we just take that out and put in new tile, the tree roots, it's not gonna take long for those. There's less joints in these, but they still can get through the cracks. Even if we could gasket them. That's even not 100% sure proof. Roots are pretty good at getting into narrow cracks and spaces. So we'd have to decide how to deal with that when we encountered it, unless the other thing we could do if we had to is to try to do a video inspection now, but if we were gonna do it anyways and dig it up, that would be an additional expense, maybe not worthwhile.
Why wasn't that done to start with to see if there's a problem? I mean,
If there was tree
roots
roots
or
or.
a blockage, could be a blockage, could be broken tile.
Yeah, the petition was about an improvement, and in looking at the capacities, yes, there could have been a problem with that wouldn't help matters. Obviously, the 10 and 12-inch, which in my opinion are undersized currently, if those were all clogged up with tree roots, it would make a bad situation worse. That's something that could be explored. I wouldn't be opposed to that, but I guess in my analysis, the existing tile are too small. And if there's tree roots on top of that, that's just another thing. We can fix both of those at the same time. So I guess in short, even if there's tree roots in there, we remove those. In my opinion, the tile is still too small.
Isn't it true that a headland, when I'm talking farm drainage because that's what I'm familiar with. But you always start with the smallest tile at the headland of the tile system, don't you? I mean, as you get down the system, it always needs to get bigger because you got more water.
Yeah,
But isn't physics that the high end drains the first anyway? If you've got a slope and you got a tile in say the same diameter, doesn't the high land always drain first? Just because normal physics of the flow?
yeah, if the, let's say the pipe is full. And there's this water waiting to get in, the high elevation would go first. And it wouldn't be perfect, like there's still gonna be some from the lower kind of sharing, but yes, it should have a driving force, assuming that tile is is full. But where we're at is downstream, I wouldn't see that being full. Basically, the bottleneck is this 10 and 12-inch tile. Downstream of that, it's a 30-inch tile at 0.4% grade with an order of magnitude higher drainage coefficient. So it can't push through all that. It's its own problem in that reach, in this top reach.
But you know, a 10-inch tile at your grade level that you got here, that's 1,000 gallons a minute. That's a lot of water to me. I know half sections of land that are grid tile that have a 10 bigger than a 10-inch tile out there. So I guess I'm just questioning, you know, why after 100 years that 10 inches is too small.
Yeah, well, they had a lot different understanding about this sort of thing 100 years ago than we do today, as far as looking at the needs for urban drainage. And there's a much, like I was talking about earlier, there's a much bigger need of getting rid of that water fast. And so most of the time, a pipe like this in town isn't gonna be full. Like in an agricultural setting, that's intended to like keep flowing and slowly drain out the land. Here, you've got a flashier system and you need to take care of that water fast so it doesn't cause damage. And you end up with much larger pipes for the area that you're serving.
Well, I have to ask a question because I see you recommend that it goes with the concrete pipe, but
Yeah,
every year we go down to the meeting in Fort Dodge, and we have the concrete people tell us one thing, and then the plastic people from ADS, and I drive semi east of here, and all day long, all I need is concrete or plastic pipe.
Yep.
Going and coming. So I know Cassuth has used some 46-inch pipe, plastic, and 46 is huge.
Yeah.
That stuff's gotta be thicker than thick.
the
So
plastic.
could we get, at least get a bid on that to see what the difference is?
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, just in my career, I could go on for hours probably
sure.
about concrete versus plastic. The standards for installing plastic technically is that you encase it in crushed rock. That, and then the pipe itself is not nearly as strong as concrete, obviously. It relies on the material around it to hold its shape. And so it's much more important about how it's installed. There's a lot other things that can go wrong. So there's just been a lot of concerns, and if you're once you get the rock in there and you have to inspect it afterward with a camera, and it can float out of the trench. Historically, I've been much more comfortable going with reinforced concrete pipe. However, I will say that recently, in the last few years, the price difference has widened substantially. And I think it's to the point where plastic may be the better choice. And we don't know unless we bid it, but I will say if we bid plastic, I mean, doing the rock, and other things that you have to do to make sure that it's done right, so that it's gonna last just as long as the reinforced concrete. But I'm by no means opposed to bidding both and seeing how they come in.
But by the same token, and I've hauled the concrete pipe,
Yep,
if you have somebody that is not careful and they break the bells on those things,
Sure.
we're sucking dirt and filling a pipe that's brand new, so 6 of one and a half dozen of the other. I'm looking at them costs and I see people that are thinking,
yeah,
you know, the school, $37,000 or whatever, if you could cut that down, maybe it at least give us something to compare.
I work on the street department here in Humboldt, and we tear up the street 9 times out of 10, let's put plastic back in. And we're going from clay to plastic, I mean, and we're putting tons of asphalt and stuff on top of this, I mean, it's just, I understand going with the bigger concrete pipe, but to me, it seems like kind of overkill for going, going through a baseball field or something like that, put a 30-inch concrete pipe through there. I feel you're at.
As opposed to something that we're driving on every single
Right,
day.
Sure.
and if you're talking going on a highway or something like that, I could see that reinforced concrete pipe, but going through 70% of it's going through a field and stuff, I don't see putting a 30-inch concrete pipe in there for, I just feel like concrete's overkill, the way I see it, yeah, so I'd assume look at the plastic pipe option. Going that way.
Well, that's what I've been hearing, so I just wanted to bring that up.
I mean, when we tear up the street, like we're fixing the storm sewer, sanitation or wherever it is, I mean, we're going back in plastic pipe. I mean, and we're going a lot of feet down, we're putting rock and everything all the way around it, so. I mean, that's. I've done that for 10 years, I mean, we've been doing that since I started, so.
yeah, I think I got no problem with that. I think maybe the thing that just to keep in mind is if you look at the price, just the raw material price of plastic versus concrete, you're not gonna see the amount of cost savings that appears to be, because you have these
you'll
other
save
things.
some, but-
That's just to make that clear. It's not as big of a cost savings as you might think, because it's not just the material that goes into putting it in. If you have to encase it in rock, you have a cost there as well.
And rock has gone up.
Yeah,
And the time involved to do that.
right. So, but yeah, I've got no problem with that, and I know with something like this, that for such a small area and such a large potential cost, I mean, we need to be looking at anything we can do to reasonably save on dollars if we're gonna do this.
Did you say you were in a summary of basically what it cost each individual on here?
Yes,
I think everybody here is concerned about the cost,
sure.
and, I've heard everybody's gonna pay 7,000, 10,000 with that, well, that can't be, because it'd be $400,000 project, but can you read that off and take about 5 minutes? I mean, there's a lot of horror stories going on as far as cost, dividing that up.
We got the full list. We can make a
I
copy.
can give you this. I don't know that I wanna read it all out person by person.
Right here's a copy of it.
No,
It's a free class.
Would that be the back page of this?
No, it's a lot.
It's a different,
It's a colored map.
it's a completely different report.
We were sharing.
It's these two pages.
Okay.
Basically, the school and the city, they're paying 210,000 for this project,
Right.
which they don't pay it, the taxpayers pay it through the school.
And that's one of those people are, and that's what they're saying earlier, people are getting.
Yeah, double. Yeah, the city's gonna pay about 160,000.
Some people are gonna be paying it more on their taxes, they're gonna be paying the city more, I mean, so, I mean, with the school, everybody's gonna
Yeah, they
get
gotta
a
pay
double
for
or
it.
triple fee, so it doesn't matter who it is. It's gonna hit everybody around. That's the problem I think everybody's having, is that they're getting, especially ones that are selected just in that area.
Right.
I think that's the main, I don't think anybody's against work being done, it's just the problem is who's getting affected by it, why it's not the whole city compared to just a few block radius.
That's that's something that we really can't do anything about as far as how drainage districts work.
I have a question to that too. So yeah, so if we're fixing Main Street, isn't the entire town benefited by Main Street not being flooded?
I mean, you can argue that. It's really, when we look at benefit, we're looking at benefited area. And if we, in order to do that, we'd have to do some wild stuff. We'd have to try to annex in everybody and argue that they have a benefit because of Main Street.
So now when we did the project on the north part of town, that was everybody, right? The entire town of Dakota City?
I don't know that it
No.
would just be whoever's water went into it.
13, part of Dakota City goes down the hill to Humboldt.
So, because some of us, I'm trying to figure out is how we did that last time, because I'm pretty sure we were part of that last time, and then, so now I'm wondering, is it because of the reclassification, it's changed again for a different portion?
If you were part of it last time, which was that large improvement you're talking about, like 2009, then you are, that was the reclassification, so you're in the district. Nothing has changed. There's a boundary basically with the drainage district, and to be in the district, you're either in on a current schedule, or if you're not, to bring you in, you have to annex them into the district. And to annex people in, you have to say that they have a material benefit. And so there's a disconnect there if you try to annex in these other residences and businesses and everything else, and saying that, well, they use the streets and so they have benefit. Well, the city is a landowner in the district, and that's where that land area falls under. Yes, it may get passed on to the residents and other people in the town, but it funnels through the city. That's just how it is. Sorry.
I'll just figure you got where if you come here and it comes out.
It's basically where the water runs. And so the road ditches may carry it a different direction. So it ended up, a lot of times, if you're drawing like out in an agricultural field, you just follow the high spot. But where there's a bunch of streets, oftentimes the streets are a high spot. And if you don't have anything underneath the street bringing it through, then that's your boundary. So that's why it ended up being almost a square. It's odd, I will agree with you. It's a challenge to figure out that boundary in town.
I got a question on, when you come across First Avenue North up here,
Yes,
didn't that tile that they put in a few years ago come right up to the school property?
no,
That ended back there, block or half a block to the north?
yes,
Okay. And what size tile are you dumping into there?
30-inch.
30 inches. Okay.
What's that? Oh, you can keep this, sir.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just a point, kind of a side point to that. Somebody might say, well, what about the people north of First Avenue North? Why aren't they included in it? Well, there's an intake very close to where we would start, and really all their water goes in and ends up in the old tile, or the 2009 tile. And so us putting this through there, it really doesn't give them any advantage north of First Avenue North.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Do you know the easement of the, how many feet on each side?
Those aren't recorded. Basically, when a drainage district is established, the code says that they've got an easement, and that's never really been, at least on the 100-year-old systems, it's never been a defined width on a tile. It's a different story on open ditches, but there's not a width. But go ahead.
So if there's a lateral, you're talking about putting a intake, so many feet away from it. That would be the landowner's responsibility, any laterals that go in, because this is probably like 20 feet easement.
So you're saying if there's a lateral that's installed by a private landowner or somebody
It
else,
goes
you
through
mean?
private land, yeah. Like the school wants to put an intake in by the field, I take it, the ball field.
Okay,
So that would be the school's responsibility then.
no, because that one specifically, we put that right, it's like a manhole that's also an intake, and that would be a transition where we go from 30 to 24-inch tile. It's part of the system. So that would be the drainage district's responsibility.
Well, there's two intakes right now on the north side of the lot. Of the
Yes.
block.
Yeah.
One's 10 feet from a tree, and that's probably bad. And there's another one on the other side of the tile. Is that gonna be replaced then too?
We hadn't planned on replacing those. This large intake that I'm talking about, that's intended to be a replacement for them. So we try to lower that down, so you're not have two intakes in different directions, you just have this one large one that's the district's. So really, those shouldn't be needed, but they're not, those aren't currently the district's facilities or responsibility, and they wouldn't be in the future either. Yeah, and I've got on the page 4, talk about assessment schedule review. That's touches on some of the things that I've brought up before. I mean, we have this branch D assessment schedule currently. That's really not much use for this because, like I said, there's a lot of people in the totality of branch D that wouldn't be affected by this. So that's why we went ahead and did a pre-classification report to try to give the people directly involved in this a better idea of what they might be looking at paying. These aren't final numbers by any stretch of the imagination, but at least gives you a better idea than what the existing branch D schedule does. And how this works by code is that it has to be based on benefit. So you have to look and say, well, this property versus that property, how does one benefit versus the other? There's different factors we look at, land area, how far are you from the tile? How much of the length of the tile do you use? How much runoff do you generate? Different things like that. So that's essentially how I came up with these numbers.
Did you have a question, John?
I got a dumb question,
Sure,
and I'm waiting for you, so, did you say you hadn't cambered it yet?
correct.
I was just saying, maybe that would be step 1, so you can see if there was a collapsed tile or something, and the reason the water's not taken there. And if it is tree roots, obviously if you were to take those tree roots out, or trees out, I think tree roots keep growing for 4 or 5 years after you take the trees out, is that correct?
They do typically grow for maybe not that long. I've heard a little bit shorter, like 3 years, but it depends on the conditions.
Right. So I think step 1 would be to see why the water is not handling it. Obviously, we've had the same square footage forever. And yeah, there was a problem when the ball diamond built up, but good collapse tile and a bunch of tree roots in there, it makes sense to me to camera it first to see what the real problem is. And if it was all totally open, then I would say, yeah, we got a drainage problem there. Everything's collapsed. That's why it's not taking it.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you make a good point, and this all has been centered, of course, on an improvement.
Right.
And we could, I'm not opposed to that.
I'm just
I
saying,
know
get fixed.
an issue that I've got is that, well, we gotta decide, okay, even if there are tree roots in there, we remove those, is the tile still too small?
That's what I'm saying.
If it is, then that point doesn't matter, but like, we should just put in a bigger tile. But if it in the past, it has done well, and now it's completely blocked up with tree roots, and if you took the tree roots out and it did halfway good enough, then why spend $270,000 on this? So that's getting more towards we've been talking about an improvement. What you're talking about is a repair. And I think.
Just curious if there's a problem.
Sure.
What is the cost of the video test?
That shouldn't be bad. We did have somebody probe it. It'd probably be a few $1,000s. And we've got up to this point with the engineering looking at it, doing some survey, probing it to try to get an idea of how deep the tile was. We've got about 13,000 in engineering into it. That's kind of where we're sitting now. But that's, I guess, I'm open to that. I understand that this is a big cost, but if the existing tile, in my opinion, is undersized. And I don't know how it performed before or after any supposed tree roots that may or may not be in there. You see what I'm saying?
I just wanna make sure that before.
We're checking every avenue before.
Yeah.
We have a camera down in our shop. We camera storm sewers, sanitary all the time. I mean, that camera down there costs us, I think, about $90,000 to have, but it saved us a lot in infrastructure costs just going through,
Sure.
able to, instead of tearing up the whole street, we can go down there and, take treated roots out and stuff like that and slip line the pipe and everything, and it gets them by, and you're not paying hundreds of thousands of dollars when you can fix a pipe.
Right, I think we understand what you're saying, and probably understand what we're saying.
Yeah.
I was wondering, on improvement deal for the ball field, supposedly this is how this all started, that I heard when you went. Is this improving, putting a fence around it and making the goal and that we're paying for? No.
We'd have to move.
But I think the school district community should have to pay for that.
Yeah, that's not the case. I think continuing on the same line of this repair versus improvement thing. One other thing to consider with that, I know there was some ballpark improvements planned, and part of this was that hopefully if we were gonna do this, that it would be done before any work was done on the ballpark. So if we wanted to theoretically just continue this or postpone it or whatever and go look at that and see what we find, that would extend the timeline down. If we end up coming back to this and say, oh, well, we're back to needing an improvement, and then, okay, now we gotta go get bids and get somebody in line, and if it was supposed to be done this spring, that's just another factor to consider. But with the weather being nice, I don't think I would hope it wouldn't take too long to get somebody to video that.
I think there's somebody in the hallway that has a camera. Somebody out there have a camera in the hallway? No? Okay.
We have one through the city of Humboldt, but it's on our people service truck, but it's owned through the city of Humboldt. So,
Well, just so people know, he did exactly what the petition asked for.
Yeah.
And the petition asked for, improve the existing 10 and 12-inch branch B of DD 80. So that's what the petition requested.
I got a technical question that I don't know the answer to. Can you rescind the petition?
Yeah, that's maybe a legal question.
Would it make much difference at this point? Here we are.
Well, basically, the
Right.
next step is the next hearing, and at that point, you'd get your remonstrance, correct?
Well, it depends. Like I said at the beginning, today, this is a formal hearing.
Yeah.
This is like, so a decision can be made today technically, but the hearing could be continued. And then a decision could be made later.
Along those lines, I've been, like I said, you followed every step according to what a petition would be for. And was there any letters, formal complaints that would speak to remonstrance?
We never received anything.
So that's kind of the thing of it.
Yeah, I'd say if there was a chance that a decision was gonna be made today, I'd wanna make it clear to the landowners in the room here that if you don't want this, that you should you should put in an objection in writing, like you still have time to do that. And I mean, there's concerns I can tell, but there's been no objections filed, but that's how the remonstrance works. Is that it has to be a written objection filed at or before the time of the hearing.
So are we past that then, because there's nothing that the office has received?
Yeah, we've always taken them during the hearing too, because to me, it's only fair. They've got a letter notifying them and maybe have had a chance to read through the engineer's report, but they haven't had the chance to talk about this. And sometimes that can make people's mind up one way or another, whether they're for or against it. So typically, we've always accepted them during the hearing as well. But obviously, if a decision is made by the board because there's no remonstrance, then they can't come back afterward and say, now I object. It's too late.
And the thing of that is, and you gave all the technical explanations earlier, that is based on percentage of the district.
Yeah.
So it would,
Well, don't we still have to accept this today?
You don't have to.
My question is, just to the audience here. What is the overall, nobody said, oh, they got a lot of questions, but no really saying, oh, I don't want this to go through. Yes, I want it to go through.
I don't want this to go through as is.
Because of the price.
I don't either. I think the whole community should pay it.
Well, we have to do it by the state guidelines.
Yeah.
The state mandates how this goes forward, right?
Yeah.
There's
Whether
way
it's here in
code.
town or whether it's out in the country.
Yeah.
That's all done by the state of Iowa.
There's a lot of limited income people.
I understand all of that, and I'd probably be in the same boat if I was looking with Bruce Reimer's name on there.
Correct. I can clarify. So I don't like this bid as is. I don't think.
Well,
20
this isn't a bid.
This isn't a bid.
This is the
Okay,
guesstimate.
so
But it's an
I
estimate.
I don't like how this is set up where we're paying for landscaping. That I don't think should be part of that situation. I don't know why we should have to pay for landscaping costs. Removing traffic control, that kind of stuff that's in there that the city of Dakota City doesn't need traffic control. We can put up barriers. That kind of is what I mean by how this is set up.
well, and you're a very good explanation of both of you. You said that you could move forward with this, but this does not mean other than then you get the bidding process and the more particular costs involved. And I know way back when this was discussed, maybe after the petition was filed, there was talk from the city, some of the things that you speak to of traffic control and things like that, that potentially would be less off of there. Would that be the time that you could kind of sort through some of that too, Colin?
Yeah, and at this stage, I left that stuff in. It's not something, unless a landowner or somebody volunteers to do that, like nobody technically has a responsibility.
They're not obligated.
They're not obligated to do that. So that's why I didn't take some of those things off, because no single person is obligated. It's the district together.
Right.
But if the city was willing to do some of those things, we.
City or volunteers or whoever. For
Well-
and reseeding and stuff like that.
Is that what you're talking about, the reseeding here? So you got traffic control is 5,000. And then the reseeding, I just had it, and I lost my place, Lane. Oh, right here,
Probably there.
19. Okay, that's 5,000.
Real proud.
I mean,
Yeah.
Well, I have a
But
question.
whenever you do that, you have to, like, even when we do a drainage out, if we do something, we have to reseed it also. I mean, that's
No.
just,
It's not true, because I asked for it when they cleaned out the ditch and they wouldn't do it.
That's different
Yeah, well.
than.
this has actual,
Well, I have a question. Can they table it today and do the camera through there and find out if it's roots and
Yes,
that broken tile and wait till they find out that before they decide anything?
yes.
Because actually, by doing the north part, you got a better outlet for this 10-inch tile than you had for
Yeah,
100 years before that.
Yep.
So it actually doing that should have improved this. So but if it's not improved, then there's something wrong.
it gave it a better outlet,
Yeah.
but if it's restricted within itself,
Right,
then it's only as good as it.
it shouldn't have got worse. When, after you did the, you know.
And I can't speak to that. I don't know if it did get worse. I'd have to rely on people who've been in the area.
Well, the outlet didn't get worse, that says that the
Right.
tile getting worse.
I walked out last time with the understanding that it's 10 years too. You paid us over 10 years.
Yes.
Yes.
Just to make sure that.
10 to 20.
yeah.
So if it's over $500, then you have the option of doing it in installment payments.
Semi-annually, because the treasurer won't take it monthly.
Right.
And you pay interest. I figured for the city, 10 years would cost them $42,821 of interest by doing it over 10 years. So I mean, it does add up.
Yeah.
Now, just speaking to the city side, is this drainage? You know, I always figure if it's 100 years old, I'm sure it's way undersized,
Mhm.
just because
Well,
things
there's-
change, paving is, you know.
Got a lot of concrete
And
out
there's
there.
been a lot of probably new
Asphalt.
buildings put up since 2000 or in the last 100 years.
For sure.
So I'm sure it probably is undersized, and I'm sure the condition of it, I'll probably guarantee you there's tree roots in that tile, because that's been nothing but a problem. These dry years, the trees look for water, and that's where they found it.
I'm sure it's not play time too, so I mean, that's just always.
So even if you camera it and clean it, is it gonna be adequate?
And that's where I was saying,
And
my opinion,
probably
is
no.
the tile that I had designed to replace it is about 10 times the flow capacity.
Yes. And 10 years from now, this price will probably be double. Because you go back, we just know the price, everything has just skyrocketed lately. No.
Yeah, and the pipe itself for a project like this, I mean, if you look at the cost estimate, I mean, that costs money, but there's a very large expense in the roads and all the other things that come along with going right in the middle of town.
Yeah, compared to like doing an
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
project.
So my feelings are they want it cambered
It is, okay,
at an additional expense.
Yeah,
Right.
it's not
We
gonna
already
be
got
free.
13,000 in it roughly for the engineering, and if you want it cambered, a
Yep.
couple $1,000 to do it. I don't care.
yeah, me.
You guys brought this to us, so.
And I'd put $100 bill on it, it's full of tree roots.
Yeah,
Cause everything we find these days is full of tree roots because it's been dry and the trees are looking for water.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a 21-inch main that was plugged with tree roots.
and the issue is the 10-12 inch is not, the capacity isn't
No
big
matter
enough.
what, it's not
So
big enough.
we're
That's
undersized,
100
so.
years old.
It's, right, it's 100 years old, so we know that for the area, for the development and everything, we need to have a bigger
You can't discount
tile.
that,
I mean, that's.
whether there's tree roots there or not.
No,
That's just a fact of everything we do now
Yep.
is almost, we increase the size because everything has changed so much over 100 years.
Mhm. Yeah, Colin can speak to this, we
Yeah.
can, Sandy even knows that if you do agricultural
Yeah.
drainage, you don't just
Do the
fix
same.
the same size, you don't even put in new the same size, it's bigger. Because it's drainage has changed from what they designed 100+ years ago.
Right.
Someday it will rain again.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
will, and then this will, somewhere along the line, this was a problem, and it will be a problem again with undersized drainage.
Yes, whether you take the tree roots out or not,
It
and just
doesn't-
have it
no.
10 or 12 inches,
Yeah.
we're gonna have a problem.
So if you put the new tile in,
Yeah,
and the trees are still there, and they're gonna find the tile, in 10 years, are you gonna have?
Nice.
Problems. I
Oh,
think that's why
removing
he
the
said
trees.
it, that if there is tree roots, which probably are, they're gonna take down the trees.
Yeah.
Oh, is that in the bid?
No,
it's not in the
No,
bid.
because they didn't know until they get in there, so that's something that's not gonna be
It's,
that huge of a cost to remove trees.
We've had some tree removals, it's several $1,000s per tree,
Yeah,
that size.
Are you gonna check on an estimate with plastic instead of the?
Yeah, if we move forward to bids with this. I can't remember if I put that in their report or not, but if that's what the board wants, then yes, I will do that. It sounds. Let's see.
When they put it out for bid.
They'll bid it both ways.
yeah,
Yeah, they'll do
we've
it both
typically
ways.
done that
And we do
on
that with most of
agricultural
them, yeah.
drainage.
We do both.
And
That
then
would
if there's
be-
not much difference, we
Yeah.
look at it and say, well, why would we go to plastic
Right.
if the concrete's only $5,000 or whatever the
Right.
number is
Exactly,
higher?
yeah, Bruce brought up a good point, that seems to me a reasonable path is to bid that, both products,
Mhm.
both options. And get that, and as everyone has heard, Colin does a phenomenal job of explaining stuff. This isn't a be all end all of that, but I think the bid process and taking some of these other things into consideration, then you have the numbers that you're really looking at.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
Yeah.
And he did speak to anything you do in the meantime pushes us back to the point where it may not be even doable this year. And that means if it pushes it back, you want to bet that anything is gonna go down in cost. I doubt it,
No.
anything. So might be best to move forward and get more detailed information.
People are lining up their jobs right now.
Yes.
And if we don't do something now, then like you said, this gets put back more and more.
Bruce mentioned too, it will rain again someday. And when it rains, the contractors will be busier, the bid will be higher. They aren't gonna look for the work that they're looking for today.
Right. Those are all
I think I'll add a little bit more in on some of that. The one thing about potentially looking in the tile and see its condition. Like if let's say theoretically, we just continue this to a later date and in the meantime went and tried to look and see the condition of the tile. And if there's tree roots in there, and let's theoretically, we see that it's like completely plugged up with tree roots is what we find. If I'm a landowner looking at a $270,000 project, and knowing that, hey, that was completely blocked up, and yes, I know that this tile is undersized and really be better if it was bigger, but and especially you that have maybe lived and owned land, have better experience than me as far as what's happened over the last 20 years in the area. You can make a better informed decision of, okay, was it okay in the past? And if we take those tree roots out, can we get back to that? And maybe that's okay, and maybe that's a better way to spend the money. But the reality is, it's still a 100-year-old tile, and it is still undersized, but do understand that that's a lot of money to be spent. So really, yeah, that's what I'll say about that. There could be some benefit in doing that. But again, if we do the inspection and see that it's perfectly clear, well, it was kind of a waste of $3,000 or whatever it would cost to do the inspection. So those are all things to weigh into it. And I will say too, if it's approved today and we go to put bids together, I mean, that costs money too, if we go down that path. No easy decisions.
I just got one question. I guarantee you the last one. Okay, the trees are on private property, obviously, right? Who's responsible for taking them down then? Because it's not in the, probably the easement of the drainage district.
Yeah, there's code on that too. If there's trees that are causing restriction, the drainage district has the ability to. People can't restrict the tile, basically. So there's some pretty strong rights that drainage districts have in making sure that their facilities can operate.
But didn't you say earlier, that's wasn't it a street at one time? Did I hear that wrong?
No, that
Through
was,
there, or the
yeah.
alleys, you're talking the alley to the east?
I don't know if it was. I think it's city street right away is what it looks like on the map still to this day on Beacon.
That's what
I can't remember if I look back at really old photos, if there was an actual street there. It never was. It was just a.
It was
Way
for
back
pulling
then.
street,
Way,
but
way.
never went through.
Okay. Well. Either order lunch and keep going with this, or make a decision. Are we wanting to move forward, or you wanting to sit on our hands, or?
Don, you guys are the ones that did the petition. What are your thoughts?
Well, that's because we were gonna handle it and found out it wasn't our property, so that's what started all this.
Gotcha.
It's like for 50-some thousand, 53,000, we're gonna have gents do it. And now it's, this project.
Welcome to the world of drainage districts.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
But there's no way around it because it is a drainage district,
Right.
so you cannot circumvent drainage
Should
district.
we now put this on hold and camera it and clean it, or see if it's crushed or roots or?
Well, that's the tough thing about being the mayor, you don't have a vote on anything.
sometimes that's a blessing.
Yeah.
If Cameron is gonna show whatever, there's a problem, they're gonna have to do it anyways.
Right.
That's maybe the biggest question is if we're talking about cameraing it, is it really gonna change?
Yeah.
The information that we could theoretically gain from doing that, is it gonna change?
Right.
The outcome.
Cameron did the problem, we fixed it and was able to handle the water. Everybody's happy.
But we won't know that until.
Yeah, if you camera it, you're gonna replace it anyways, because you guys ultimately have a vote, no matter what camera it's on. That's
And
the problem.
And if you run
You guys are
into
already far enough along, it sounds like what you're saying is that you're gonna do it anyway, so.
the 100-year-old tile, which it is, and it's issues with that. We've run into this in more agricultural, but where do you draw the line? Are you gonna dig up same areas to fix old tile? Because, oh, we saw it's broke and we're gonna dig up the street to fix the old tile. You're gonna run into a lot of expense for a repair versus an improvement.
And that's the disadvantage of drainage districts in towns is that outside of city limits, county secondary roads, the work within the right of way is the responsibility of secondary roads. Within town, it's not the city's responsibility, it's the drainage districts. So that's the difference, yeah. Not
That's really too
everything.
bad it wasn't handled when they did DB 80.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hindsight's always pretty clear that they didn't extend the project when they did the bigger improvement. That would have, we wouldn't be here because it would have been, probably the same, wouldn't you guess, Colin, being the engineer? The same proposed tile and that would have been installed back in and around 2009, and this would have been a moot point.
Yeah, and that's always one of those balancing acts of, at the time, how far do you go? Cause it always costs a lot, right? So you're trying to,
Apparently, they thought back then, okay, this will get rid of that problem, but obviously it didn't really improve the entire structure.
Right.
So,
A 100-year-old tile would be flats
yeah,
this spring, again, right next to where we fixed it.
Well, when we do dig up these 100-year-old tiles, they're usually oval shaped. Cracked.
Yeah.
And when you touch them, that you keep struggling, how far do I go?
You can't.
Because you keep digging and it keeps collapsing and collapsing when you get close to it. So
Is this-
it is a problem.
Do you know what the tile is made of, this old tile?
I think it's clay.
Clay. Well, then Rick's point is 100%.
Yeah.
You're gonna chase after trying to fix something that's not really fixable.
Since obviously money is the subject here, when it comes to bidding it out, I'm the state clerk, and I've talked to you a couple different times. Can we pull some of the things out and take a separate, like, for the street work, like we talked about Wagner? He's obviously gonna give us cheaper bid than anybody else with having an asphalt company right here. Like, can that be pulled out to not be part of it so that way the general contractor doesn't have their 10% and type of things like that? Can we pull anything out? Like, obviously, not speaking for the city guys, but we have barricades. We have different things when it comes to that $5,000 for traffic control. That's where we had said we could lower some of those costs.
Yeah,
And
because
That's
quite
what I
often
think,
you have,
yeah.
they come in and do a lot of patching in town and you,
But can we
That's a-
pull some of that out, so we're getting a direct bid as opposed to it being with the project? Or,
So
I know there's laws.
a few things I don't think the laws would cause trouble there, but I do. We wouldn't, if we did it separate, we wouldn't have them under a contract and a bond and insurance and all of those things. That would be a concern I would have. We can maybe notice the cost estimate I broke down kind of into different categories. If we can bid it in different sections, and we could theoretically say that, you know, we might award different sections to different contractors, but there's pros and cons to that. Obviously, the road work is an obvious one that maybe somebody different would do, because like you said, if somebody else has it, then they gotta get a sub, and then they're charging extra.
15%
Right.
of it on $50,000 of road work, that's a big deal.
Right. The disadvantages, and then they'd have to have a separate contract and work through that sort of thing. But if it's a big enough dollar amount and enough work, it can it can end up saving money overall. So those are things. I think that's where I'd probably take it, is break it up into sections and just say that maybe even just the roads, just say this road work section, the board reserves the right to be able to award that separately from the remainder. And maybe you wouldn't have to, maybe somebody just gets it all, they're the lowest in every section, and then you can just award one contract, but at least you have that flexibility then. Yeah.
Quick question on some of the traffic control stuff, like, let's say the city was to put up some barricades and somebody moved in barricades and somebody got hurt on that. That would come back on the city initially.
Yeah, that's again, a concern I had about the traffic control is liability and who's responsible for that. So. Yeah, I get it. It's a challenge, and we're trying to save money.
yeah, it might cost you more to save a few dollars.
Yeah, which is more, what's gonna cost you more in the long, could possibly cost you more in the long run.
Yeah, risk reward.
Yeah. Good way to put it.
So maybe the biggest one is what you spoke of, is the actual street repair, if you wanna call it that. And you could do that in a bidding process.
Yeah.
Alter.
Just give it flexibility to
have that.
award that separately. To a different contractor if they're the lowest on that section.
That would be a big chunk of it.
That might be a little bit of a problem when they go to cut across that street, because that's old Highway 10. And my understanding, there's 10-inch concrete base under there.
I think it's supposed to replace Main Street.
No, I don't think so.
Not being replaced, it's being resurfaced.
Yeah, they have to cut that out to be able to put the pipe in.
There's gonna be a lot of cutting probably. And that could add to the cost, or it might not, I don't know. I wasn't here when Highway 10 was in.
You weren't?
No,
I thought maybe that's
before
how
my
you,
time.
I thought that's maybe how you knew, Dave.
I lived with 51 years.
Well, I know, it was even before you.
But that's what I was always told. I heard it through, and it was a 10-inch concrete here all the way.
What's that?
Do we need to make a motion then to either get the bids in, or is that?
Yeah,
Well, it's the next
I think
stage.
to accept the engineer report.
Report?
So,
So do we have to accept this? Isn't this, have we actually received most of this information? Are we accepting this today and then moving forward with,
This is the formal hearing on the engineer's report.
So you can accept this, we can move forward to the bid stage, and if the bid stage comes in higher than what we want, we can still
always say
reject
no.
it.
Yep.
Right,
And then we're
Yeah.
just right back to where we were.
Right.
What you
Plan.
said for engineering
That's a
and
good point.
whatever,
I
I
mean,
mean,
I,
or we can
Yeah.
have lunch.
It's not, yeah, I guess we're talking about a lot of scenarios and unknowns, but
right,
if we did the bids and they came in really high or something, we might, before we decided on that, might circle back to saying, well, maybe we need to look at this tile and see if it is tree roots, and we can take that out, and then if it's my hope is obviously is that it's less than what I'm estimating.
Well, I got an alternate
estimate.
suggestion.
Yeah,
Being as this is a drainage district. The school and the city are the two largest payers. They're paying $160,000. $210,000 of this $270,000. Can they put their own private main in?
then have the drainage district accept it and hook up.
The drainage district has to allow someone to tile into the main,
Right.
which our main sits up there as a 30-inch.
I think if they don't,
They would have
If
to
they
enter
don't
into an
mess with-
agreement between the two things. Yeah, they wouldn't touch
if
some
they
other
don't touch
two.
this, if they don't touch the existing tile and they put one off to the
Parallel.
side.
Just one parallel to.
And obviously they'd wanna hook to the existing 30-inch main.
They can
and they're
do all
going
the
through
work
their own
themselves.
streets and, yeah. Yeah, I think they could do that.
I
So
mean,
then
I
you'd
hate to
be
even
back-
throw that out there because it's another option.
You'd be back to what they were
Thinking about
first
doing,
at.
and then you could just contract your local bidders and have them do it. At maybe a
I
considerable
was
less
wondering
cost.
that too, is there any way to break the project up, like, is there, like, if the main purpose of the baseball field is drain back, and then can you just run a pipe from the baseball field up to where you're going on the north there, and then, like, for Main Street, can you route that somewhere else to get water off of Main Street, like, is there? I know, I don't understand the drainage system thing, but I didn't know if there's ways you can break that up or not, or if you have to drain into one, or. If,
You're talking about moving water around, different, like changing where it goes.
yes,
Well,
trying to make it all go north, can you separate and go?
yeah,
Yeah.
you'd end up
The code says no.
yeah,
crossing lines and,
then you got.
Most BBA is designed to handle more, so.
I got, we won't,
Are you saying we just contract ourselves and put a
you,
24
what
inch
you,
pipe all the way through the property
yes,
ourselves, and we think we can save dollars that way?
yeah,
And then do our own playground work and do our own ground.
Yep.
And seeding and all that.
yep, and the city takes care of the roads themselves and.
That would be cheaper. What do you think?
Something to look at.
Where have you been
It
for now?
could-
Sometimes it
Could
takes
be.
a while to
We
think.
gotta connect where you say we connect on. When block.
well, that's where it's obvious where you'd want to. 'cause
Yeah, you have
it
to
jumps
connect
from,
there.
it goes from a 30 down to a 12. And so you'd wanna hook into the 30, and that's half the block north of First Avenue North.
I was gonna say, where's that at on this map?
It's right there.
Right there, this is where.
At the end of it.
For the Y.
North side of the.
Yes.
Oh, okay,
I mean, the city and the school would have to enter into agreement that the city's gonna pay this percentage, the school's gonna pay this percentage of putting in the pipe, and then you take care of your own landscape.
Well,
Dorothy's next thing, she's asking a great question. Would that result in that'll bring the project cost totally down, which could in turn save the residents some dollars that way too, in a ripple
Yes.
down effect.
All of the residents.
They save everybody money.
Maybe.
Perhaps,
You don't know.
yeah.
well,
You haven't got
yeah,
a bid yet.
No, you haven't got to.
so. One thing I'll throw out there, kind of a wrench into it, is if you can't touch the existing tile and you have to go somewhere else. It's gonna be even harder as far as utilities, and the drainage district has an easement there and says that if somebody else is in the way, you kind of gotta move at your own cost, but if you as the city have to cross any of that stuff and off to the side and stuff has to move, then who's gonna pay for that? That'd be a added piece.
Private owners are still would be responsible for about 100,000.
Are you talking, or
Each private owner, but what would be next is what the school pays and the city pays, and then private owners would still have about 100,000.
well, the scenario we're talking about right now is if we leave the drainage district out of it, and essentially it's a scenario where it's the school and the city work together to put a private thing, these other landowners up that map that shows the dollars, that wouldn't be there. Now, there would still be
You wouldn't do anything with ours then.
with the drainage district, but the city would still be paying for that, and so that would still end up
On your tax.
on your, yeah,
Yeah.
Except that we divided out. the whole
Yeah.
city instead of just,
that's true.
Now, here's the thing as far as leaving the tile, we've just had an extensive discussion that's very old and undersized, even though if you put in this project, city school, that old tile, which would still be serving a purpose, you'd run right back into the same thing between potential tree roots and the age of tile, and it probably isn't gonna work very good for very long. So where does that leave anything that doesn't include, with essentially almost a private tile?
Yeah,
You know,
that's getting more into the legalities.
you're not gonna take away a drainage district. The folks in it that we talked about in the district are still responsible for this old tile. And it's not gonna become a new tile, just if this school city thing would go through. So you're still, I foresee problems down the road
Yeah,
and expense down the road with an
maybe
old tile system.
theoretically. And. Yeah, this would be something that you'd wanna talk to a drainage attorney about, but abandoning a drainage district facility. That could theoretically be an option, if a private main was put in to replace it, and you say, well. We're gonna abandon this, but that's a little bit scary too, cause you don't know what's all hooked to it and.
Right?
Yeah,
The real-
we're getting into
The real
weeds
slippery
here, but-
slope that everybody wants to save money,
Yeah,
but you might throw, it's money.
What's that
But you
say?
may end
Save
up
a nickel with
costing
a
more than less. Sean even touched on that. Trying to save money and you're gonna ultimately spend more, as much or more. And you're actually gonna shoot yourself in the foot with your drainage. And the whole gist of a drainage petition is to improve the drainage. And certainly this engineered report shows this would improve the drainage. So it seems to make more sense that we touched on. Everybody move forward, the bidding, look at some of the scenarios of the, cost savings, and Colin already mentioned that. That probably seems like maybe the better case scenario for everybody involved versus going this route. It's gonna be an expense to the school and the city to explore that. And you touched on some things, you start doing something privately and there's easements and utilities and things like that. And it might end up being a worse debacle than what everybody might consider it right now.
Well, 1,000, that's our part. I don't know if that would be under 51,000 still if we did it ourselves, would it, you think?
you mean if you paid for the whole thing?
We just did
There might be more.
property area.
You didn't have to pay for the streets.
If you had the, if you
Well, that was 48,000, I think. Does that sound right? That was for, I don't have the price.
Yeah, I got it right.
I just would question that there's really substantial savings there, you know, 1933,000. Everything.
Yeah, I think you said the word substantial savings. I don't.
Yeah,
if
I don't know how
anyone's
much
gonna see it.
kind of savings.
I really don't know if anyone's gonna save anything substantially to improve
Right.
the drainage.
I'm shocked by every bit I get now. I mean, it's just,
Yep.
everything's going up.
Yep.
Well, the main difference is where it's gonna be distributed to. Now, the school has got the whole, almost the whole county. City's got the whole city, instead of these individual landowners that are going to.
Yeah.
Bear
take
the
the
brunt.
brunt. Yeah.
You don't cross, you don't touch any of the other tile.
But if you don't know where the utilities are, or
Right.
you don't have any easement rights, and you could be running into I mean.
You could be a can of worms that you can't get to the
Oh my
bottom
gosh,
of.
That's kind of what I'm thinking, and you could be, the old saying, save a nickel, lose a dollar. You know, so are you really willing to gamble that? Are you willing to gamble that? And then what if you do that, and then you still got that old tile system and something goes wrong there, then what do you do?
Colin,
Got a question. Is there any reason why the city of Dakota City can't borrow Humboldt's camera for us to do our own personal look as opposed to?
I can't answer that. That'd have to be.
That'd be through the city. Yeah, I just didn't know if that's.
That'd have to be
you
a
can't.
council to a council. type
Yep.
thing,
Yeah.
so.
I think we should go back to the fact that with the updated information. Getting to the bid process, the fact that that is not at the be all end all, but
Mhm.
it will have more hard and fast numbers. There is always the option that comes to. Here, it would be a good process, and so,
It's hard
no,
to
this just
process.
isn't gonna go.
Yeah.
There is other things to fall back on. Good or bad, but without that, we're still guessing a lot, but I think with some of this updated stuff, and bear in mind that. District as it sets has already incurred expense to get to this point. To throw everything out and try to then. Deal on your own, like I say, I think Sandy hit the nail on the head. You're trying to save a nickel, but you're spending $1 to save the nickel. So you really,
Well, the other thing is we don't know who would bid it. We could end up with someone that is in the area
Yeah.
waiting to do a job in
Yes.
southern Cassuth County.
yes,
And they will come through, do this because it's not that big of a
no, it's not a
job,
big job.
and tie it to
Exactly.
theirs
Yep.
and make it work for their company for the
Yeah.
spring or whenever.
I see us moving forward with the bid process to find all this out.
We can still.
Yes, it's nobody-
It
it's
doesn't
not
cost
set in stone.
anything for the bid process.
Not set
and
in
it
stone.
doesn't solidify.
No,
We need to accept the preliminary engineering report. That's what's on the agenda for today.
well, I make a motion that we do accept the preliminary engineering report for DD 80 branch D.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, carried. Okay,
But do we need to make a motion to go on the bidding process, so to start the bid?
Colin, I suppose,
You want a date?
I don't need a date yet. I basically, and I've got it recommended in the report that, so if you approve the report
Conclusion,
technically,
recommendation.
Well, okay, then we got
if
the
you're
bid.
being crossing all the Ts and dotting all the Is, you could have a motion to direct the engineer to proceed with preparing plans and specifications and moving towards bid letting.
Okay, I'll make that motion to, have the engineer do the, bid process, plans and
Bid
bid
process.
processing. Okay.
I'll second.
For sure.
any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Question, can we make that motion because all that's on the agenda is preliminary engineering report hearing?
that's part of the hearing. We've done that
But, yeah,
before.
right.
That's part of the hearing, isn't it? We've done that.
I would think.
We've done that. We've done,
Yeah,
I mean,
and
that's
we're in
all.
drainage, and we're in drainage.
Yeah, we're
Not
in- yeah.
listed, so that's what I'm questioning.
Yeah, no, I think that's.
All
part of the
right.
hearing.
Moving forward,
Anything else in drainage?
not that I have, do you have anything?
Does anybody have anything in drainage? I make a motion, we go out of drainage.
I'll second that.
Thank you all for coming. I
Thanks,
think you
everybody.
got some
We gotta
language.
vote on it.
Get together and talk. See where you're at.
No, that you have.
Yeah.
Oh, not.
Yeah.
It'll be on
We just motioned in a second.
the agenda in a couple of weeks, whenever we're gonna do this, right?
So I'll have to get the plans and specs together and
And then it'll be put to a bid.
then it'll be on the agenda to set the bid. for
Set the bid.
Here's copies of the engineer's report if anybody wants a copy. Did you get one? Here's the-
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. You.
I think we're doing that. Auction of the building project. Something, I mean.
Free flow.
Yeah, you get lost.
Shelley, you're learning
He's probably already one.
You fired already, so I'll let you know you're old.
No, you know that ain't. gonna go away.
Thanks, guys.
That's what they're saying. That they're utilities and there's no trees on enough land. Playground equipment, being enough dollars to do the playground here.
Yeah. Oh, don't it?
No, it's not.
We need to get more.
We know it's our county.
Yeah.
He works for.
So have them.
Well, carry
But
on.
he does it for
Yeah,
all-
thanks.
Not just, I mean, it's not, he does it for all the counties.
I thought we were building, I don't know. Something about making it a 600 and some foot tile.
Oh, yeah, that's my code. I'd be back to that. I guess it's not that cold.
And you got your phone?
February. Yep, I got that.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, thank you, Colin.
Chat up.
No.
Chat. Right not.
Okay, guess what? You guys are up.
I think we got a vote to go out of drainage.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
we didn't vote.
We got a first and a second.
Yeah, we got a first, a second, we didn't vote.
Now, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, okay. Andy, you're finally up.
What?
Yes,
We're only
we're ready
an hour-
for you. Where you
we're only
been?
15 minutes late, sorry.
Okay,
Come on up to the.
come up to
up
the
to
here.
seat. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Well, that works. If you want to sit, I'm not gonna sit. Is
It's a-
that okay? Can I stand?
You can
Sure.
stand
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
can-
it's, uh,
Good.
Yeah.
So we're,
Oh, okay,
I don't really go to sit.
okay.
So I'm gonna pass out some information. I know you guys have got some of this, but, and then I'm gonna so this is Shirley Phillips. She's the director for the Western Iowa Tourism Region, to which you are members, so thank you for that. But here's some information regarding kind of the state and tourism and where things sit with tourism, and we're gonna kind of talk through a few things and kind of let you know where some of the impact is going and some of those things. You guys can ask questions, talk about various things, and
Okay.
so if you want to take one of those and pass them about. That one and pass it about, there's extras too, so.
We'll get.
Like, yeah, I think there's 10 copies of them around, so.
We're gonna go on this one. What are fingers?
There we go. Then there's that.
Standards don't work.
Yeah, same thing.
Thing, yeah.
More, no, I guess. We do.
Yeah.
Oh, I got some.
Well, it's not nearly as fun when it's in black and white.
Hey, state man.
Don't they do
You gotta
that?
say that?
Come on.
You want to start, Shirley, and kind of go from there?
Well, first of all, we do thank you for being a member of Western Iowa Tourism Region. We are 36 counties on the western side of Iowa, and we try to promote tourism. I think the most important thing is that people don't realize that tourism is an industry that does not make anything. All we do is generate revenue. $6.9 billion in 2022 was the amount that was taken in by the state. And of that 6.9 billion, it generated $1.1 billion in state and local taxes. Now you have a report there for Humboldt County, and I want you to notice these are 2022 numbers, not 2023. The state only pays to get those numbers once a year. So these are a year behind. So we did have a better year in 2023, of course, after the pandemic than we did before. So we are a generator of income. It's important that people find the amenities in their communities to attract not only residents, but also workforce. You know, I spent 25 years in economic development, so I've worked everything from childcare centers to housing to Highway 20 to whatever. So it's important that we are working. We do thank, there are two actually lodging facilities in Humboldt County that are human traffic certified, and that's your motel here in town and the conservation. So that's great to have that. And that was something that was dropped on us during the pandemic as well.
That opens up the campground, so that if state employees are gonna come in and they're gonna be here long term, state employees cannot stay in a place unless it is certified.
Certified, that's right.
So that opens up the campground so that if, and there are state employees, because of the grotto, I'm also certified. And it will have state employees that will bring the trailers up, travel trailers up, and they'll stay in the travel trailer because they know they can stay there, right? So, and we're the only one in West Bend, so I mean, it becomes a thing where it's very helpful to have that. Plus, good optics too, right?
It's a challenge too, because we had people that were working for the DOT clearing snow last year over Christmas, and we had the big storm. They came into our community and we did not have any certified place for them to stay, and they couldn't be reimbursed. So we have fixed that, but that otherwise they would have had to try to take their plows another 10 miles to the next town to try to find a place that they can be reimbursed for lodging. So no schools or anything can stay in those properties unless they're certified. So that, you know, school children, if somebody got stuck on the road or anything. So it's important that they all become certified. So that's one thing that we try to stay in compliance with as well. You have a lot of things going for you here in Humboldt County, but there are a lot of things that you can probably do to attract more. I noticed that there's a project with the river and the conservation and stuff like that. That's pretty important. We find out when we work economic development that you almost have to have the amenities and work on these things. I know you have an aquatic center in Humboldt. That's great. You have a trail. I'd like to suggest that for the trail, you maybe contact Trees Forever and do a community visioning for a trailhead project. And they have done a wonderful job with all the trail projects, you know, around. It's important. They can also do entryways to your communities as well. So they're a good group to work. It's called Trail Visioning or Community Visioning with Trees Forever. So there's just some programs. When we send information to our members, if they are a member of ours, then they get information on all these kinds of grants and programs and stuff that are available as well. So
no, that's, yeah, and I mean, one of the things that, if you take a look at the one that says Humboldt County, or the sheet that says Humboldt County on it, I want to point you down to this on the where it says visitor spending by category in millions of dollars, right? So if you look at the growth rate towards the bottom of that chart, you'll see that the state has a growth rate of 12.9%, and Humboldt has a growth rate of 6.5%. And I think that one of the things that and I think that part of it is that we don't have a lot from a we feel like we have a lot, right? I've lived here for 40 years. We feel like we have a lot, but when you take a look at some surrounding counties and surrounding things, really there's a lot we can do to bump that number, right? And get closer to that 12.9%, that 13% that's out there. And I think that, you know, kind of having and it's not just the city, right? I mean, so a lot of people say, well, just put it on the city. The city can figure it out and the city can have this. But it's countywide. There's lots of things to do in the county, right? I mean, we just did this fall, we had the Hard Pack 30, right? We resurrected the Hard Pack 30 to raise funds and kind of go down that. I mean, that's kind of Eric's deal and my deal, and we were kind of through that, but there's also other things that can happen. You know, the dam issue that's out there, and I know that that's a sore subject at the moment for a lot of people, but the dam issue that's out there, whichever direction it goes, can be a huge generator of dollars for the county. Not just the city. I mean, the whole county, the county is going to feel the impact as well. But not having an active sort of mindset with regard to what we're going to do for tourism doesn't help. If you look at all of these pieces that we gave you work in tandem. with one another. And so our unemployment rate stayed the same for December. I think that's what it was. Yeah, for December.
Yeah.
We didn't, and you see the majority of the state actually saw a reduction in their unemployment rates, and we stayed pretty much the same. Everything around us was that way except for Franklin County, right? So I mean, so it's one of those things where tourism draws in dollars. Tourism also draws in work. You get people who are involved with tourism and it's gonna help the workforce grow, and it's gonna reduce unemployment. And that's part of how this goes. So I think there are things that can be done. There are ideas that can be thrown out there, but it shouldn't just fall on one organization, or it shouldn't just fall on, but it needs to be a county-wide initiative to grow this and get us from 6.5% to 13%. And there's no reason why we can't approach that 13% number. You know, I mean, we don't need to have the reputation of being a suitcase county and being in a manufacturing county only. There's a lot of things. There's a reason why people live, 9,500 people live in Humboldt County, or 9,900 people live in Humboldt County. We want, you know, it's a good place to be, and why aren't we showcasing that? And why aren't we bringing that out and getting people to come here to see what it's all about and see that kind of growth that we deserve and we believe that this county deserves to have.
And you can come up with the tourism attraction. We in Sac County built the world's largest popcorn ball. We not only built one, but we built 4. And during COVID, we had all 50 states and 19 foreign countries visit that popcorn ball. So we don't have a grotto that was built in the 1920s. We don't have, you know, a German house barn or windmill or anything like that, but they come to see that popcorn ball. So you can come up. I came up with that idea. I'll take the blame for that. So you can come up with something. So.
But there are other things that we do have, right? So I mean, so thinking, you know, moving down that line, there are things that we do have. We used to be known as the town of Christmas town, right? I mean, when I was a kid, right, Dave? I mean, the entire hill had Christmas cards, and we had lighting contests, and we had all these things, and then we had the Hillside Spectacular and I know that time passes and people die and things change, but that's just one idea, right? Also, what is Iowa known for from a sports standpoint more than anything else? Wrestling. We're a wrestling state, right? We're the premier, even though Iowa just lost a meet, and I mean, we're still the premier wrestling state in the country. And in the first half of the 20th century, who was the greatest athlete in the entire United States? Frank Gotch. What do we do for it? How do we promote that? If you got wrestling and you've got a wrestler who is the greatest sportsman in the first half of the 20th century, why aren't we doing something more than a statue and a few bricks? Right?
They do. They have a wrestling tournament. They had over 600 kids there this year.
Right, but it's a youth tournament, right? So why can't you? So what can we do to grow it, to promote it, to make it bigger, take the next steps, do those kind of things, and bring that stuff and make it a national event, or make it bigger than what it is, right? Those are things that we can do to grow. And that's what we're talking about, is growth, right? So does the Frank Gotch tournament add to the 6.5%? Of course it does. But what can we do to make it bigger? What can we do? Those are the things that those are the questions that need to be asked. And those are the things that we can do to move the needle in the direction we need it to move, right? So it's not about, we're here to help you understand that we're not asking for money. We're hoping to figure out a way to help you make more money, right? So I'm not asking you guys to spend money. We're trying to give you
a return on your investment.
A return on the investment of what you're doing already, right? Grow what you've already got. So those are just a couple of ideas that are out there. So I mean, when we look at that kind of thing, that's kind of where we're at. And you can look at different pieces in there, and Shirley can talk about some of that stuff too. So it's out there.
You've had enough talking today, right?
That was a lot longer. No, you can see.
Yeah, we didn't think it was gonna. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. No, that happens.
But so lodging is your number one visitor spending in the county. So when you look at that, right? And also, and then after that is food and beverage. So those are your top 2, right? So, and realistically, you want lodging and food and beverage to be like 3-4, right? You want other things to be bigger. You want retail to be bigger, and you want recreation to be bigger, for sure. Those are the 2 things that you really want to start moving the needle on and get to kind of go down that road. So that's, from a county standpoint, there's more than just Humboldt. There's also Dakota City, there's also, you know, Livermore, and there's also Bode, and there's all the other towns that are part of what goes on here too, so. You know, there's opportunities there's all kinds of opportunity, it's just what do we do with it? And that's why we provide you this information, is to give you ideas and to give you opportunities to look at different ways to grow and different revenue streams to bring in, right? So. Again, it goes back to, we're not asking to spend money, we're giving you ideas on how to raise money and how to generate dollars where they wouldn't necessarily be.
We can encourage people to move to our areas if we have amenities to give them, like outdoor recreation. Your trail is a good, I don't think you advertise a trail enough for them to know that it's there, you know, things like that. So there's things that you have that just need to be promoted. And once again, that ties together well with economic development. That's how we use to attract a workforce for all of our major manufacturers. And we have one now that has almost 300 employees. They've expanded 5 times since they moved here and bought more land just a year ago. So that happens, but they enjoy the fact that it's next to Lake View. You know, there's hunting and fishing and of course the trail and all that kind of stuff. And so they want to move their families there. So we're looking at an aging population in rural Iowa. We know that we're all getting there. Boomers are retiring. We need to attract young people and they like amenities like your aquatic center, your trail and all that kind of thing. So.
Shirley, are you from Sac County?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I spent 30 years on Highway 20. If you've heard my name, it's my fault. So, yeah. I think about 23 years as president, so it was tough, but 60 years from the time they cut the ribbon on the first 2 miles until we cut the final one.
For like 2 years.
To the day,
They
October 19,
start
2018.
The ribbon for resurfacing it.
Well, we had some problems over here with the aggregate. So that was.
Well, the deal 2 weeks ago, they had one of the legislators going back to Des Moines. And he went down following somebody in the left lane and they wouldn't pull over. Well, if you've ever drove the right lane, if you drive semi, it's like a.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the reason. I can't wait. Hopefully run into him Thursday if we're down there and say, you know, maybe you need to move some of that crap out of the right lane and make it as smooth as the
Took
left
us
lane.
20 years to get the gas tax raised, so we didn't even get it figured. So it's like, well, that was a battle and a half.
But that was,
Yeah.
that was, first thing he does is we're gonna find him.
Yeah.
Oh, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Like the troopers have all their time to run around.
We don't have
chasing
any
people
troopers
down.
anyway.
Yeah.
And we've got lost people too. So anyway, if you have any questions, please reach out to us. There's a lot of planning that can be done, but you need all parties involved. And it can be done. I mean, you know, like I said, it's part of economic development. I've done everything from highways to childcare to housing to, you know, tourism, and I've been in tourism since I got into economic development. So in 1988, so it's important. So
what can we do as a county? I know you said you do better promoting, but what are some of the things that we can do as a county to help us?
you know, once again, I would certainly look at your visioning, your trail visioning program with Trees Forever. What we used to do is we gave them $2,500. They took us through this. It's a planning session where you go through transportation, historical, nuisance properties, all kinds of things. So you recognize what's in your area. And then they have landscape architect kids from Iowa State University draw you up. Like a new trailhead, you know, what you could do to landscape or your city signs or something like that. So there's a number of things. And then you get the fresh, what the younger people are looking for in a community, you get their perspective. So I always recommend Trees Forever. I had all my communities do Trees Forever planning, community building program, and then even had a revision, and then we had the trail as well. And I know Audubon has had the trail revisioning and ended up putting birdhouses along the way because they're known for their birds as well as the T-bone trail and things like that. So there's all kinds of things. First of all, you need to leave Humboldt County and see what everybody else is doing. And I used to threaten my board all the time saying, I'm gonna put you on a bus and we're gonna go travel so you can see what everybody else is doing. So reach out and pay attention and you know, travel around and take a look. We had a Freedom Rock guide that was put out by the Western Iowa Tourism Region, and people love that, you know, and it's still on our website and people can do that as well. That was a great project and we grew faster than anybody else across the state. And we were the only region that had a Freedom Rock guide. So
T-bone trail is another one, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, when we look at things, we had a T-bone trail that came across Western Iowa that showed where you could go to get best steak and throughout the western side of the state, and Humboldt's actually on the list, right? So down at 716, they're part of it, right? I mean, and
We hired an influencer to do that, and then he was on social media, and that brought people out after COVID and brought them to restaurants and we went to small communities as well as large ones, so that people could start to travel again, and we'd get some money back on our restaurants and things.
and it worked.
Yeah.
And it worked. We did a second iteration of it, and we're looking at, from a Western Iowa board perspective, on what can we do in the future to do something similar that's gonna refresh that program again, right? And so it's sometimes it takes a little bit of that kind of a thinking to kind of go down that road. And it's not really on the supervisors individually to pull this off. It's kind of a collective community aspect of what goes on. But since you're the members, you hold the membership, sharing the information with you is a good place to start, right? So is the trail bridge, is the Ped Bridge, is that part of a county initiative? Or is it shared with the city, or is it all city? How is it? Is it all city?
We contributed funds, but it's a city.
It's a city project.
Yeah.
So, that would be something where if we want to look from a county standpoint, right, what can the county, what else can be done other than contributing funds? How else can the county be involved from an aspect of that? Because it's gonna benefit the county too, right? And kind of work down that road. I think that, and then to look at expanding beyond manufacturing, I think, and using, not just be a way to kind of promote infrastructure. Let's promote the amenities that the county brings too, because we're real good at promoting the infrastructure, but what else can we do to promote the amenities that we have? Because there's a reason why we live here. I mean, we love being in Humboldt County, right? It's safe, it's effective, it's easy to live here. Nothing's really out of control as far as how much you have to spend and what you've got to do. I mean, by and large, it's a wonderful place to spend the rest of your life. So why wouldn't we want to bring other people in to do that too? And that's the key.
Yeah, pickleball courts, everybody has pickleball courts now.
Oh, yeah.
Hell, yeah.
That's a big thing, yeah. So
Yeah, and the rec center, right?
come up with something that people can do for 2 hours.
And the rec center is a big part of this too, right? I mean, that's a huge amenity that comes in, and it's a generator. So, and not just because, I mean, I'm up there all the time, and you see people that aren't just from Humboldt proper. You get people from all over the county, you get people that come in from Webster County for it, because it's cheaper than the rec in Fort Dodge. So,
Or even popcorn balls work. Even popcorn balls.
And we even blew up the first one.
Oh.
You have what do you call it, trail committee, maybe what we need to do.
Oh, the trail committee Andy's been involved in some of those.
But maybe what we need to think
Oh,
about
yeah.
is
Start there.
having a tourism committee. You know what I mean, to start thinking, how can we promote within the county, get somebody from every small town?
Yeah.
Right.
And what can we do,
And a lot of counties
promote.
have,
Yeah.
a lot of counties have tourism committees, so.
Right, so maybe that's what we need.
Right.
Even our
I will say
arts
that,
and music stuff.
Yes.
We have.
I mean, we did this,
Courses
go to
going on.
Lakeview and see what they've done. In
I've been
two
in
thousand eight, I said to them, either you're gonna change this community or nobody's gonna be at the nursing home to take care of you when you get there.
Yeah.
And so we've done everything from streetscape projects to park projects to the trail, head revisioning and all kinds of stuff.
like,
So
yeah,
the handicap fishing thing.
Right on the trail.
Yeah.
Lakeview's a wonderful.
We took care of the nursing home issue, we just closed. it.
Well, the mayor coming, I'll tell you what, the mayor would love to have you come and visit. He'll show you all the projects they've done, so.
Yeah.
it's
One-
changed a lot.
yeah.
It is good.
One thing to consider as well is, and I know that she talked about a $2,500 kind of assessment. Roger Brooks, through Destination Development Association, also comes in and will do, he's a private firm that will come in and he'll actually do a full county assessment if you ask him to do a full county assessment. He's a little more expensive, but and again, I'm not asking you to spend dollars, right? It's just an opportunity to at least have a conversation, right? You can reach out to them. I can tell you that at no cost, because the region bought into them. He's helped me out at the Grotto to kind of grow what we've done at the Grotto and bring that up. And then so a lot of that has come directly through him. So I think that there's opportunities there for some things and conversation. So Sandy, if you're looking for different things that you can do, those are some different things. And he's all in all, he's not super duper expensive. Sometimes it just feels like it,
And
especially to somebody like me who That's no budget at all.
We have had members of our region come into and do a first assessments or first impressions
Right.
visit, and they'll just come in and take an assessment of your whole community and give you a report.
Yeah.
So, we're pretty good at that too,
Yeah.
telling you what we think. So,
Thanks, really.
you bet.
Yeah.
Thank you
And
for your
Andy.
time. You guys
Yeah,
have
no,
been
you're good.
overloaded. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
So reach out to us if you have any questions.
Yeah.
Okay,
You guys know how to
okay,
get
do you
me,
have a
so-
business card or anything?
You know what? My
Or-
name is on the bottom of your
Yeah.
report. It says-
Oh, there it is. I just saw it right
Okay,
there.
yep.
Okay.
Okay.
That our
And
website.
I think you guys, pretty much, I think every one of you, right? Phone number.
We like.
Yeah.
But if you put
You got
some
me.
on-
Yeah, well, I got Andy's phone number, that's all the reaching out I need to do.
Yeah, there you go.
And Shirley, I'll tell him to get a hold of you and then I'll talk to
There
you.
you go.
There you go. All right, thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Felt like we built Highway 20 today.
All right, that is everything that's on the agenda. Is there anything else to come
How
before?
can
the
you have
board?
that few things on the agenda and we're still here? Love it.
Long hearing.
I think these people here from the RWE, wind energy letter that we have,
We took that under advisement.
take that under advisement. If you want to speak, you gotta be on the agenda, but
Yeah.
That was not the intention for our visit. We wanted to sit through the learning process and learn a little bit about the county, and then following the meeting, introduce myself as the project developer and the land agents helping work on this project.
Okay, then we'll
Well,
I'll make a
make a
motion.
motion to adjourn in a second.
yeah,
No, I'm just, if they aren't gonna
Yep.
do
yeah.
everything, then we'll
Yeah.
move forward.
okay,
I
when I
need to
give
move
Jeremy
forward.
the other one a second.
Yep.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.